Have you ever wondered why a simple morning routine could silently put your health at risk? As men age, habits we've taken for granted for years can start to harm our hearts, nerves, and even our confidence without us ever realizing it. I'm Dr. James, a board-certified urologist with over 30 years of experience helping men over 60 navigate the complex intersection of aging, sexuality, and health. In this video, I'll reveal the 4 dangerous mistakes men make in the morning that could be quietly damaging their bodies, and share the exact time of day when self-pleasure becomes not just safe, but beneficial. You need to watch until the end because these insights could protect your manhood, safeguard your health, and help you reclaim intimacy with dignity and peace. Before we begin, I would appreciate it if you like this video. You can help me continue to spread the old age lesson. If you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like this video, please comment number 1. If you don't like it, comment number 0 to let me know, so I can make a better video for you. Now let's get started. Mistake 1. Rushing it on an empty stomach and a dehydrated body. Let me share a critical insight that many men, particularly those over 60, are unaware of, and it's taking a heavier toll on their health than they might imagine. As a physician, I regularly encounter patients who follow a predictable morning ritual, one they've likely adhered to for years without questioning. They rise early, often before dawn, when the world is still quiet and their household is asleep. Their bodies, however, are far from ready for activity. They haven't eaten since the previous evening, haven't sipped water to rehydrate after hours of sleep, and their systems are still in a delicate state of recovery from the night's rest. Yet, without a second thought, many of these men engage in self-pleasure, seeking a fleeting moment of release to start their day. To them, this act feels harmless, a private indulgence that carries no consequence. But to their aging bodies, specifically their hearts, blood vessels, and nervous systems, this habit can be a silent and dangerous ambush. After the age of 60, the male body undergoes significant changes that make it less resilient than it once was. The cardiovascular system, in particular, becomes more fragile. Blood pressure regulation grows less predictable, and circulation naturally slows during sleep, leaving the body in a state of relative vulnerability upon waking. Add to this the effects of dehydration and low blood sugar, which are common first thing in the morning, and you have a recipe for physiological stress that many men don't even realize they're imposing on themselves. When sexual arousal is stimulated in this unprepared state, it places an abrupt and intense demand on the cardiovascular system. The heart rate surges, blood vessels constrict rapidly, and blood flow is redirected toward the pelvic region at a time when the brain and heart are still in need of stable circulation. For some men, this sudden shift manifests as dizziness, lightheadedness, or heart palpitations, uncomfortable but seemingly minor symptoms. For others, however, the consequences can be far more severe. Fainting, dangerous drops in blood pressure, or even life-threatening cardiac events are not uncommon in such scenarios. I recall a patient from last year, a 68-year-old man who collapsed in his bathroom mere minutes after reaching climax one morning. Initially, he attributed his symptoms to a panic attack, but medical evaluation revealed a far more serious issue, a transient ischemic attack, TIA, often referred to as a mini-stroke. This was a warning sign of a potential major stroke, and it was triggered by the intense physiological stress his body endured in a dehydrated, fasted state. His story is not an isolated one, but it underscores a critical truth. The body, especially as it ages, requires preparation before being subjected to any form of stress, even the pleasurable kind. This isn't about instilling fear. It's about fostering awareness and respect for the remarkable yet vulnerable machine that is the human body. Simple preparatory steps can make a world of difference. Drinking a glass of water to rehydrate, engaging in a few gentle stretches to stimulate circulation, and eating a small, nutrient-rich snack to stabilize blood sugar can prepare the body for the demands of sexual activity. These actions are not just practical, they're an act of self-respect, a way to honor the body that has carried you through decades of life. Unfortunately, this connection between morning vulnerability and sexual activity is rarely discussed, leaving countless men unaware of the risks they're taking. It's time to change that narrative, to start a conversation that could save lives. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Mistake 2. Using porn as a morning stimulus every day. The second mistake is one that many men are reluctant to acknowledge, yet it's a habit that has become alarmingly common. Picture this: A man wakes up, reaches for his phone before even getting out of bed, and begins scrolling. Not through news articles, social media updates, or family photos, but through explicit videos or images designed to ignite arousal. For many, this has become an automatic part of their morning routine, a way to kickstart the day. I've had patients, men in their 60s and beyond, confide in me with a mix of pride and nonchalance. "Doc, it's just how I get going. It makes me feel alive." But what they don't realize is that this habit is doing far more than providing a momentary thrill. It's fundamentally altering their brain's wiring and eroding their capacity for genuine intimacy. When you begin your day with pornography, especially daily, you're not just stimulating your body. You're subjecting your brain to a barrage of hyper-intense stimuli that it was never designed to process. This is particularly consequential for men over 60, whose dopamine systems, the brain's reward and motivation circuitry, become more sensitive and less resilient with age. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter responsible for feelings of pleasure and drive, but when it's repeatedly flooded by the extreme novelty and intensity of pornographic content, the brain undergoes a process of desensitization. Over time, this overexposure dulls the brain's response to more natural, less extreme stimuli. The consequences of this desensitization are profound and often devastating. Real-world intimacy begins to feel lackluster. The touch of a partner, the emotional connection of physical closeness, or the subtleties of mutual affection no longer trigger the same level of arousal or satisfaction. I've sat across from men, devoted husbands, loving fathers, who are baffled and heartbroken by their inability to become aroused with their spouses. The love is still there, but their brains have been conditioned to crave the rapid-fire novelty, variety, and intensity of online content. This isn't a failure of character. It's a neurological hijacking, one that occurs gradually and insidiously over months or years. What's more, this habit doesn't just affect intimate relationships. It erodes self-confidence and emotional well-being. Men who rely on pornography often find themselves caught in a cycle of chasing an ever-elusive high, only to feel empty or disconnected afterward. They may not connect their morning routine to the broader changes in their mood, motivation, or relationships, but the link is undeniable. The brain, especially in the morning when it's most impressionable, absorbs and adapts to the stimuli it's fed. By choosing pornography, men are inadvertently training their minds to prioritize artificial stimulation over authentic connection. Breaking this cycle isn't easy, but it's possible, and it's worth it. I urge men to reconsider their morning habits and prioritize presence over pixels. Instead of reaching for a phone, take a moment to breathe, to connect with your surroundings, or to engage in a meaningful conversation with a partner. The initial discomfort of stepping away from a long-standing habit will fade, and in its place, you'll rediscover a capacity for connection that feels real, grounded, and fulfilling. Your mind and body deserve more than a fleeting dopamine hit from a screen. They deserve the richness of human intimacy. If this strikes a chord, you're not alone. But brace yourself for the third mistake, which may surprise you even more. It has nothing to do with what you watch and everything to do with how you position your body during sexual activity. This subtle but critical error could be compromising your circulation every single morning, setting the stage for long-term health consequences. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Mistake 3. Masturbating in a tensed or seated posture that cuts off blood flow. This mistake might seem trivial at first glance, a minor detail in the private rituals of daily life. Yet, as a urologist with over 3 decades of experience, I've witnessed how this seemingly small habit can silently erode a man's sexual vitality, particularly after the age of 60. Masturbation, when done in a tense, seated, or slouched position, can compromise the very systems that sustain arousal, sensation, and long-term pelvic health. It's not just about comfort, it's about preserving the delicate balance of circulation and nerve function that your body relies on. Let me share the story of a patient I'll call Robert, a 74-year-old widower who embodied resilience and independence. Robert lived alone, maintained his home, and prided himself on his self-sufficiency. Each morning, as part of his routine, he would sit on the edge of his bed, hunch forward, and engage in masturbation. It was quick, mechanical, a habit formed over decades without much thought. When I asked him to describe his experience, he hesitated, then admitted something troubling. Over the past year, he'd noticed a growing numbness, a dulling of sensation, and a sense that it's not the same anymore. Climax took longer, felt less satisfying, and left him with an odd tingling in his pelvis. He chalked it up to aging, assuming it was an inevitable decline. What Robert didn't realize was that his seated, forward-leaning posture was creating a cascade of physiological problems. When you sit tightly, hunch over, or tense your thighs during masturbation, you compress the pelvic region, restricting blood flow to critical arteries and nerves. Specifically, this posture puts pressure on the pudendal nerve, which is responsible for sensation in the penis, perineum, and anus, and the internal iliac arteries, which supply blood to the pelvic organs. Day after day, this chronic compression starves the penis, prostate, and surrounding tissues of oxygen-rich blood, leading to reduced sensitivity, delayed ejaculation, and, in some cases, long-term nerve damage. For younger men, the body's resilience can often compensate, but after 60, the margin for error narrows. The pelvic floor becomes less forgiving, and the cumulative effects of poor habits begin to surface as numbness, erectile difficulties, or even bladder control issues. The science is clear. Healthy sexual function depends on robust blood flow and intact nerve signaling. When you masturbate in a way that constricts these pathways, you're inadvertently sabotaging the very pleasure you're seeking. Imagine trying to water a garden with a kinked hose. The flow is choked, and the plants wither. Similarly, a tense posture during masturbation limits the oxygen and nutrients that keep your sexual organs vibrant. Over time, men may notice subtle signs: a faint tingling after climax, a need for more stimulation to achieve the same result, or a lingering stiffness in the hips. These are not just aging, they're warning signals from a body under strain. I explained this to Robert and suggested a simple adjustment. Lie back on his bed, elevate his hips with a pillow, and keep his legs relaxed to maintain an open pelvis. This position minimizes pressure on the nerves and arteries, allowing blood to flow freely. I also encouraged him to take his time, to breathe deeply, and to focus on the sensation rather than rushing to the finish line. Within 3 weeks, Robert returned with a spark in his eye. "It's like I can feel again," he said. The numbness had faded, his arousal felt more natural, and he described a newfound ease in his body. This small shift, changing his posture, had reawakened a part of him he thought was lost. For older men, this lesson is critical yet rarely discussed. No one teaches you that the way you sit or move during private moments can shape your health decades later. Society doesn't talk about it, and most men don't think to ask. But the truth is, your body is a finely tuned system, and every choice matters. By prioritizing proper posture, lying back, supporting your hips, and keeping your pelvis open, you can protect your circulation, preserve sensation, and maintain the vitality of your sexual health. As we move forward, there's another mistake I need to address, one that's not about the body but the mind. It's deeper, more insidious, and it can affect far more than your pelvis. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Mistake 4, mourning, guilt, and shame that spike cortisol. If the third mistake is about how you position your body, the fourth mistake is about how you position your heart. It's the silent emotional burden that many older men carry after masturbation, a wave of guilt, shame, or regret that lingers long after the moment has passed. In my years as a urologist, I've seen this emotional weight leave scars far deeper than any physical issue. It's not about the act itself, it's about what you feel afterward, and how those feelings reshape your body and mind. Picture a man in his late 60s, waking up alone in a quiet house. Maybe he's widowed, maybe divorced, or maybe he's simply never found the right partner. The morning feels heavy, and in a moment of seeking comfort or connection, he turns to masturbation. For a fleeting moment, there's release, a spark of feeling alive. But then, almost immediately, a voice creeps in, "You shouldn't have done that. This is weak. You're too old for this." For many men, this self-judgment is rooted in lifelong beliefs. Perhaps religious teachings that labeled self-pleasure as sinful, cultural messages that tied masculinity to restraint, or the loneliness of aging in a society that rarely acknowledges the sexual needs of older adults. Whatever the source, the result is the same: a crushing sense of shame that taints what should be a natural, human experience. What most men don't realize is that this emotional spiral doesn't just wound the spirit, it alters the body's chemistry in profound ways. When you feel guilt or shame, your brain signals the release of cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. A cortisol spike in the morning, when levels are already naturally elevated, can wreak havoc. It suppresses testosterone, the hormone that fuels desire, energy, and confidence. It raises blood pressure, straining the heart. It weakens the immune system, making you more susceptible to illness. And perhaps most surprisingly, it impairs hippocampal function, the part of the brain responsible for memory and emotional regulation. I've had patients in their 60s and 70s come to me complaining of brain fog, fatigue, or erectile dysfunction, only to discover that the root cause wasn't a physical disease but the unspoken stress of shame tied to their private habits. Let me tell you about James, a 68-year-old retired teacher who came to my office frustrated and defeated. He described feeling foggy all day, struggling to maintain erections, and battling a low mood that he couldn't shake. During our conversation, he hesitantly admitted that he masturbated most mornings but felt disgusted with himself afterward. Raised in a strict household, he'd internalized the belief that self-pleasure was wrong, yet he turned to it as a way to cope with loneliness. Each session ended with a wave of guilt that left him tense and withdrawn. I explained to James that his body was listening to his emotions. The cortisol surges from his shame were disrupting his hormones, straining his cardiovascular system, and clouding his mind. The solution wasn't to stop masturbating, it was to reframe how he approached it. I encouraged James to permit himself to feel pleasure without judgment, to see masturbation as a natural act of self-care rather than a moral failing. I also suggested he practice a brief moment of gratitude after climax, perhaps silently acknowledging his body for still being capable of sensation and joy. Over time, James reported a shift. The guilt began to fade, his mood lifted, and his erections became more reliable. By changing the emotional narrative, he allowed his body to heal. This is the message I want every man to hear. You deserve peace in your private moments. Your desire for pleasure, connection, or simply feeling human is not something to punish yourself for. Your body thrives when you approach it with kindness, and it suffers when you burden it with shame. The path forward is about rewriting the story you tell yourself, embracing self-pleasure as a moment of dignity rather than secrecy. But even with this emotional shift, there's another piece of the puzzle: timing. When you choose to engage in self-pleasure can make the difference between harm and healing. Let's explore that next. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 4 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. The ideal time for self-pleasure: a window of healing. After addressing the physical and emotional mistakes that can undermine your health, one question remains: when is the right time to masturbate? For older men, this isn't just a matter of convenience. It's about aligning with your body's natural rhythms to maximize benefits and minimize risks. Timing can transform self-pleasure from a rushed, stressful habit into a restorative act of self-respect. So, let's get to the answer I share with my patients, grounded in physiology and decades of clinical experience. The best time for self-pleasure after the age of 60 is late afternoon to early evening, typically between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. Why this window? By this time of day, your body is in an optimal state for healthy arousal and recovery. Let's break down the science. Circulation and hydration. By late afternoon, you've likely eaten, moved around, and hydrated, ensuring strong blood flow to the pelvic organs. This supports firmer erections, heightened sensation, and a more satisfying release. Hormonal balance. Cortisol levels, which peak in the early morning, are naturally declining by the afternoon, reducing stress on the body. Meanwhile, testosterone, which dips in the morning, begins to rise again in the late afternoon, boosting desire and vitality. Nervous system calm. Your parasympathetic nervous system, which governs relaxation and arousal, is more active in the afternoon. This creates a mental and physical environment conducive to presence and pleasure, rather than urgency or guilt. Mental clarity. By this time, the day's demands have often settled, leaving you less distracted and more able to focus on the experience without rushing. I once worked with a patient named Thomas, a 62-year-old accountant who felt disconnected from his body. He described masturbating early in the morning, squeezed into a hectic routine, often feeling tense and unfulfilled afterward. I suggested he shift to the late afternoon, ideally after a light walk or a warm shower, to relax his body. I also encouraged him to create a calm environment: dim lights, soft music, no pressure to perform. A month later, Thomas shared that the experience felt like a gift, rather than a chore. He noticed stronger sensations, a deeper sense of calm, and even improved energy the next day. By aligning with his body's rhythms, he had rediscovered pleasure as a source of dignity, not stress. This shift in timing isn't just about feeling better in the moment, it's about long-term health. Afternoon self-pleasure supports cardiovascular function, reduces stress hormones, and promotes the release of oxytocin and endorphins, which enhance mood and resilience. It's a small but powerful way to honor your body's needs while reclaiming intimacy with yourself. Final thoughts: reclaiming intimacy with dignity. If you've stayed with me through this journey, you may be seeing your private habits in a new light. And if so, let me say this clearly: you are not alone. You're not broken, and you're not the only man over 60 navigating the complex terrain of sexual health, desire, and aging. In my 30 years as a urologist, I've listened to countless men, strong, proud, private, who've carried questions, habits, and fears they felt too ashamed to voice. What I've learned is universal. Your desire to feel alive, to connect with pleasure, to reclaim vitality, it never truly fades. It may grow quieter, more vulnerable to mistakes, but it's always there, waiting for you to honor it. We've explored 4 critical mistakes that older men often make in the context of morning masturbation. Skipping preparation, like eating or hydrating, starves the body of energy and strains the heart. Relying on overstimulation, such as pornography, can desensitize the brain and disrupt natural arousal. Using tense or seated postures, which compress nerves and arteries, leading to numbness and dysfunction. Carrying guilt or shame spikes cortisol and damages hormones, heart health, and memory. These habits may seem small, but over time, they accumulate. They alter your hormones, restrict your circulation, rewire your brain, and erode your confidence, all while you tell yourself, it's just aging. But it's not just aging. It's a series of choices, often unconscious, that you have the power to change. The good news? You don't have to give up pleasure. Instead, you can choose it more wisely, at the right time and in the right way. By shifting self-pleasure to the late afternoon or early evening, you align with your body's natural rhythms, creating a moment that supports healing rather than harm. By approaching it with mindfulness and self-compassion, you free yourself from the weight of shame and reclaim intimacy as an act of dignity. Your health matters. Your heart, your nerves, your hormones, your spirit. The older we get, the more every choice carries weight, but that's not a burden. It's an opportunity to honor your body, to listen to its signals, and to prioritize your well-being. You deserve to feel good in your skin, to experience pleasure without fear, and to live with vitality, even now, perhaps especially now. Thank you for staying with me through this journey of understanding your body and reclaiming your health. We've covered the 4 critical mistakes men over 60 often make in the morning, from rushing without preparation to carrying silent shame, and how these habits can quietly harm your heart, nerves, and confidence. Most importantly, we've explored how choosing the right time, late afternoon to early evening, can transform self-pleasure into a moment of healing and self-respect. What have you learned so far? I'd love to hear from you. Please comment below with one key insight you've gained from this video and how you plan to put it into practice in your life. Your story could inspire others. If you found this video helpful, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more practical health advice tailored for men over 60. Let's keep learning and growing together.